Welcome back, crypto enthusiasts. In today's Web3 documentary, we're shining a spotlight on one of the key figures behind the success of Uniswap. We're talking about Hayden Adams, the brilliant mind behind this revolutionary platform. Uniswap removes the middleman from the equation, making the process of trade much easier, smoother, and more affordable. That's what any decentralized exchange, or DEX for short, aims to do. And that's what Uniswap pioneered and excelled at. This brings us closer to decentralization, token-based economics, and blockchain, the pillars of Web3 economy. Let's explore how Uniswap has transformed the crypto landscape and get to know the mastermind behind it. Early life of Hayden Adams. Now, let's shift our focus to the mastermind behind Uniswap, Hayden Adams. As the founder of Uniswap, Hayden's vision and technical expertise have been instrumental in the platform's success. Despite being a relative newcomer to the blockchain space, his innovative thinking and dedication have earned him a prominent place within the crypto community. Hayden was born on October 21st, 1992, in the United States. Upon getting his university education, he realized how fascinated he was with the world of computer science, especially where it intersects with finance. Hayden's commitment to decentralization and open source principles has inspired a new generation of developers and entrepreneurs. His emphasis on community involvement and transparency has set a high standard for future blockchain projects. Hayden Adams had a background in mechanical engineering. He graduated from Stony Brook University, indicating a strong academic inclination, particularly in technical fields. He has an ongoing senior design for a BCI robotic arm that he's been working on since September 2015 in association with Stony Brook University. There's also another one that's a brain-computer interface device for cerebral palsy, which he worked on from September 2015 and up to May 2016. After completing his education, Adams worked in various engineering roles, including a position at Siemens. The post before that was a medical engineering intern at Vista Wearable Inc. And before that, he was a researcher at Columbia University Medical Center. At the Columbia University Medical Center, he was developing an algorithm that retrieved relevant articles to any search query that the user made from the PubMed database. While it's apparent that he was more involved in medical tech in the beginning, his career took a significant turn when he was introduced to the Ethereum blockchain and smart contracts, leading to his deep involvement in the blockchain space. Hayden Adams conceived the idea of Uniswap. He recognized the limitations and inefficiencies of traditional exchanges and set out to build a better solution.
In college, I studied mechanical engineering, and the first year after college, I worked at Siemens, basically doing, it wasn't telecoms, it was actually computational fluid dynamics, but basically studying heat flow and doing heat flow simulations for car designs, which maybe sounds interesting and exciting, but it was actually incredibly boring. Well, working computational fluid dynamics, I'd say that I was probably not the best employee. I think maybe actually a starting point was I didn't really enjoy it. It was pretty boring. Even though it doesn't sound it, and just like wasn't very excited.
With his profound knowledge of Ethereum and smart contract development, Hayden Adams created Uniswap, which now stands as a pillar of the DeFi ecosystem. He even published research on topics like smart contracts and decentralized systems.
Uniswap was a little bit of like the anti-hype project, where like other projects raised massive amounts of money and then promised like the world, and then delivered like, really shitty UIs with like kind of smart contracts that often had like centralized backdoors and all that, and had been like hyping themselves up for years. And then I'd say that Uniswap, at the moment of launch, most people hadn't heard of it yet. I announced it on my Twitter, and I had like 150 followers at the time, and hadn't done any publicity around it really, other than like going to conferences and talking to people in person. And so at the moment it launched, it had like a complete front end, a complete, like the smart contracts were done and live and audited. The front end was done and live, and you could use it, and you could add a token, and anyone could immediately, so it was like immediately useful and usable, and no one had heard of it before. And it kind of basically like contrasted really heavily against the projects at the time. And I think even like the fact that it didn't have a token at the time was like it was sort of like the anti-hype project, where it's just like, oh, it works and it already exists and I can already use it. And then I think the other part where the bear market, but I think that was exciting to people, is like, I think the other exciting part was that like having something that like was gaining, like people started to use it and the volume numbers started to like creep up. And it was, the early usage was from projects that were like struggling to get listed on centralized exchanges, or struggled to find market makers who would create liquidity in them. So they had very low liquidity on centralized exchanges. And so having this ability to like self-serve to list and create liquidity. Back then, in the early days, was really huge for a few projects. And so as you start to get this early usage and adoption, having like a chart that was like going up, even like the Uniswap usage chart was like the only like up chart at that point in time, and everything else was like down. And so like it kind of like was like a rallying cry point for like the early Ethereum community of like, here's something that actually like is working. People are using it. It didn't overhype itself. And so that was where like a lot of this like initial excitement and adoption and community like support came from.
Genesis of Uniswap. It's interesting to think that Hayden Adams had the capacity to work on his breakthrough project after having been laid off from Simon's in 2017, when he found himself at the crossroads of his professional life. As any of us would do, Hayden talked to a trusted friend, Carl Flourish, who was working for the Ethereum Foundation at the time. Carl talked to Hayden about the untapped industry that had amazing potential, which seemed like an amazing opportunity compared to the dying field of mechanical engineering. With that in mind, Hayden dedicated the next 2 months learning the basics of JavaScript, Solidity, and of course, Ethereum. He focused on showcasing his skills in terms of implementing a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange platform, which would utilize automated market makers under the supervision of trustless smart contracts rather than people. Alan Liu of Gnosis coined the idea, and Vitalik Buterin, Ethereum co-founder, started publicly talking about it, hoping that DeFi enthusiasts and supporters would take an interest in it. Vitalik was right, and Hayden's one-page single liquidity provider had a better UX and proof of concept than even Ether Delta, the only DEX at the time with any traction. Before we delve into Uniswap, let's first understand the concept of decentralized exchanges. Unlike traditional exchanges that rely on intermediaries, decentralized exchanges leverage blockchain technology to facilitate peer-to-peer transactions directly between users. One of the most prominent DEXs is Uniswap. Uniswap launched in 2018 and quickly became a game changer in the world of decentralized finance, DeFi. It introduced an innovative automated market maker, AMM, model that eliminated the need for books and centralized intermediaries. Instead, Uniswap relies on liquidity pools, allowing users to trade directly from their wallets. The entire project began as a pet project for Adams to hone his coding skills. However, with his intellect and involvement in the world of Ethereum, he was able to build something that established him as a multi-millionaire and a tech hero for anyone who's interested in crypto. Vision for Uniswap. What sets Uniswap apart from other DEXs? Firstly, it operates on the Ethereum blockchain, making it compatible with a wide range of ERC20 tokens. Uniswap utilizes an automated pricing mechanism that calculates token prices based on the ratio of available tokens in the liquidity pool. This approach ensures continuous liquidity and reduces slippage. Uniswap also introduced a revolutionary concept called governance tokens. These tokens, known as Uni, grant holders the power to influence platform decisions and share in its success. Uniswap's commitment to decentralization is further exemplified by the community-driven nature of its development and decision-making processes. Uniswap's impact on the DeFi space cannot be overstated. With its user-friendly interface and open-source nature, Uniswap has empowered millions of users to participate in decentralized finance. It has democratized access to financial services, allowing anyone with an internet connection to trade, provide liquidity, and earn passive income. Uniswap's success has also sparked a wave of innovation in the DeFi sector. Numerous projects have been built on top of Uniswap, creating new trading strategies, yield farming opportunities, and decentralized applications that leverage its liquidity pools.
After learning like the basics of smart contracts, I really just felt like I was like stalling in my ability to learn more. And again, had like another call with Carl, and he was again kind of like, well, the thing you need to do is you need to take on a side project. You need to actually try to build something. You can't really learn just like, watching YouTube videos and experimenting on your own. And so really, was looking for a project to start on and had a bunch of different ideas, but ultimately settled on this blog post that Vitalik had written about like a new way to do exchange on Ethereum. And I thought it was really interesting. To me, Ethereum was really cool and interesting because this idea of you could build applications that no one controlled, that anyone could use, that you didn't need to trust anyone because all you needed to do was trust the code. And so the earliest idea of Uniswap was just, can you make a smart contract on Ethereum that lets you trade between cryptocurrencies in a way that it really embodies those properties of Ethereum, like true decentralization. And so decided to build a side project. Story will accelerate pretty quickly there, but really just from there, spent the next year building out from like an early proof of concept, got a grant. Once I got the grant, it felt more real, and I just like took that proof of concept, kept building on it. During that time, I started going to a lot of Ethereum conferences. So while building Uniswap sort of as a side project, just went to all the crypto Ethereum conferences I could. Just made like a lot of friends in the space. The early Ethereum community was really cool and interesting, and everyone was building at the time. This was, post 2017 bull market. This was like crazy bear market vibes, and it was just like the people who were still working on Ethereum really cared about it and were really interested in it. It was like a really good community, and spent all the grant money on smart contract security auditors and on contractors to write designs for the web app, and then launched it as a solo project in November 2018. Uniswap Labs actually did not form until spring 2019, when after people started to use V1 in the early days, it got that initial excitement and traction, and then basically formed the company.
Creation of Uniswap. Although at the time he was working on smart contracts and creating his protocol along with its UI, Hayden had been unemployed for 5 months. He was living off the crypto holdings he had acquired earlier that year. His genius move in showcasing his work in a perfectly appealing way has gained him plenty of attention, particularly from Pascal Van Heck, a smart contract engineer. Pascal offered Adams mentorship and told him he'd fund his next month of building the project. With that step, Adams was able to work on Uniswap at a much larger scale than a pet project.
So Uniswap V2 came out and became this much bigger money Lego, had much more adoption than V1. And an entire ecosystem formed around it, which we see, what that looked like back in the day. But it actually, funny enough, the new features that we introduced with Uniswap V2 actually did not get used. The main new feature was ERC20 pairs. And because it wasn't in a very efficient curve for stablecoins, people didn't really use it for stablecoins. And everyone else just wanted to pair their tokens against ETH. The other features were like oracles, which were mostly used very poorly. And it actually did not fix V1's biggest problems, which were like around flexibility and expressiveness and efficiency.
He embarked on a journey of turning Uniswap into a full-fledged decentralized exchange, embracing all Ethereum principles. Hayden wrote on his Uniswap Labs blog, "I began thinking about Uniswap not just as a learning tool for myself, but one for others. I couldn't imagine a world where it competed with real projects. The ones that raised between $20 million and $150 million in the summer of 2017. But maybe it could serve as an example of an application that truly embodied Ethereum." However, by April 2018, Uniswap's crypto holdings were down 75%, which posed a significant setback. Yet, after the Ethos conference at Hong Kong in 2018, Vitalik Buterin saved the project with another grant after a brief exchange between Buterin and Adams. It was at this time that Adams realized it was his chance to make something big out of his project, and that's why he worked with his team on the following: reviewing the code thoroughly, modifying the smart contracts to favor liquidity providers over traders, auditing the protocol security, implementing new front-end designs that were easier for users to navigate. Then, after a year's development efforts, Uniswap launched on the 2nd of November in 2018, which coincided with the last day of the DevCon 4 conference in Prague. Originally, Hayden Adams named the project Unipeg, a combination of a unicorn and a Pegasus. However, Vitalik Buterin suggested Uniswap, and that's what they all went with eventually.
The process of getting a new Uniswap is going to look a little bit different this time around. I think that a really important starting point is that we see Uniswap as very similar to Ethereum itself, where it's a core piece of infrastructure, public infrastructure, on which thousands of teams are building. There's hundreds of thousands of liquidity providers, and it's really just this like public infra for the entire space, right? It has about at times it has over 90% market share for on-chain trading on Ethereum at least. And so similar to how Ethereum has this like public process for it being rolled out, and there's a lot of time for people to respond and react and give feedback and input. There's time for all the different projects building on top of it to begin preparing their infrastructure and build on top of it. With this version of Uniswap, we really wanted to build it in public, and so what we're rolling out today is basically a vision for Uniswap v4, as well as a white paper and a draft of the code. So the code is, we have an initial code base and it works and it proves that it can work, but it's not final. And we don't expect it to be final for many months.
Setting the platform apart. Although Uniswap rose to the top of the popularity ladder of DeFi platforms, it still had no active tokens of its own, even by September 2020, 2 years after its launch. At the time, several Ethereum projects operated with having tokens, although there wasn't an actual need for them. Adams didn't want this to happen for Uniswap as well. That's why he focused on creating a self-sustainable and shared ownership community over DEX, which means that he had to introduce token governance. Governance tokens give anyone holding tokens a voting right in the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, DAO. In other words, this pushes the protocol's direction toward a dynamic where more power lies in the hands of those holding more tokens. For Hayden, this was the ideal way to implement the pillars of neutrality and trust minimization, and it was embodied in Uni. With Uni, tokens were airdropped to anyone that had used the exchange before. On the 17th of September 2020, 400 Uni tokens were distributed to more than 250,000 accounts, and that was the equivalent of more than $1,400 at the time. The early adopters of the protocol were naturally extremely pleased with this, and it caused a ripple of talk and attention in the community. Within a month, 91% of the available assets had been claimed by eligible addresses. However, even after 3 years have passed, there are still 30,000 wallets that haven't claimed their Uni bags yet, leaving $84 million worth of tokens unclaimed. That original $1,400 that was airdropped is now worth more than millions. The platform has seen a ton of growth, and many long-term investors have been excited about the opportunity to hold Uniswap in a crypto IRA. For US investors, they can open a crypto IRA at iTrust Capital and buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrencies like Uniswap with tax benefits. If you want to learn more about iTrust Capital and crypto retirement accounts, be sure to check out our Web3 learning resources section in the description of this video.
Something we've been working on for a while now. So excited to announce a project called Uniswap X. It is a new phone. No, it is a auction-based routing protocol. So, how does Uniswap X work? Basically, and we'll get into some of the benefits in a second, but Uniswap X basically works by, all orders now start off as off-chain signatures. Today, most orders are transactions that are submitted directly. These are off-chain signatures, which we are calling Dutch orders. So these orders are essentially auctions. The price, you sign an order that says, this is the price I'm willing to accept, and that price goes down a little bit over time, attempting to optimize the price that you get. So the price decays until a transaction is filled or it times out. There is a new party of users. These are actually kind of old users in disguise called fillers. They compete to fill the order first against each other. The people that do this are people that look like block builders, et cetera, today, arbitrageurs today. And I think that the important thing here is that today we have this problem of front-running an MEV where often you get the worst rate you're willing to accept rather than the best rate that is available. And that's because people can reorder transactions within a block and move the price. And so by structuring orders as competitive auctions, you attempt to get the best rate that someone can offer, not the worst rate that you're willing to receive. Additionally, so auctions take time, and having auctions happen more quickly, there can be tricks for that. So the base protocol doesn't need this, but there's an optional ability to parameterize these Dutch orders using an RFQ system, which helps the auction happen faster. And so this is sort of what the two variants look like. Pretty simple. You have a starting price, sort of like the maximum price you might expect to get, and then it decays to the minimum price you're willing to receive. But again, the sort of way sandwiching works is that you often get the worst price you're willing to receive, and what we expect here is that you will get the best price that is available when possible. And complex trade-off space of parameterization, but aside. Then with the RFQ variant on the right, there is sort of this ability to converge more quickly on the initial price or the expected price. It still is a public auction, so if someone has price improvement on top of the RFQ winner, that price can be overridden.
From the moment that the protocol was envisioned and up until now, Uniswap has been demonstrating exceptional innovation and setting new standards for the world of DeFi. Thanks to Uniswap, governance token airdrops became a standard in DeFi, and other protocols followed suit, including Optimism, Arbitrum, and Curve. Uniswap continually innovates, as seen with the launch of Uniswap v2 and v3, which introduced features like direct ERC20 to ERC20 swaps and concentrated liquidity. These innovations enhance the user experience and the efficiency of the platform. For Uniswap, there's a futuristic Uniswap X that's going to enhance swapping in many ways, including better prices by aggregating liquidity sources, gas-free swapping, protection against maximal extractable value, or MEV, failed transactions with zero cost, and even gas-free cross-chain swaps. And there you have it, a closer look at Uniswap and its visionary founder, Hayden Adams. Uniswap's innovative approach to decentralized exchange has revolutionized the DeFi landscape, making it more accessible and user-friendly than ever before. If you want to see another documentary of a Web3 pioneer, then make sure you click that video that's on screen now. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way until the end of this video. Make sure you click that subscribe button and let us know what you think about Uniswap in the comment section below.